Greetings and welcome to another episode of His Will for Your Life. I am your host, Sherry LaVon Harris, and we have joining us today is Dr. Nicole Burris. Dr. Nicole Burris is known as the Heart Coach, and you'll find out why in just a moment. But today is a sensitive topic, and we're going to be talking about suicide awareness and grief. Dealing with grief is not easy, especially when it comes to suicide. Suicide is a sensitive topic that can be difficult to discuss openly, but important to raise awareness and offer support to those who may be struggling. And if you or someone you know has lost a loved one to suicide, it is important to allow yourself time to grieve and to seek help if needed. Grief can be a long, painful process, but it's important to remember that healing is possible. Surround yourself with supportive people and do not be afraid to seek professional help if necessary. In terms of suicide awareness, it is important to understand that suicide is often a result of an underlying mental issue, such as depression, anxiety, or trauma. It is also important to recognize the warning signs and to offer support to those who may be struggling. And this can include encouraging them to seek professional help and letting them know that they are not alone. Suicide prevention is everyone's responsibility, and we can all play our role in raising awareness and reducing the stigma surrounding mental health by offering support and understanding to those who may be struggling. We can help prevent suicide and support those who may be affected by it. Please stay tuned as we get prepared to hear from our guest tonight.
His will for your life with Cherie Harris. This is your weekly Wednesday 7 p.m. podcast. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Informative, hot topics, testimonies, interviews, along with your weekly guests and more. And now here's your host, Cherie Harris.
Welcome back. Again, I'm your host, Sherry LaVon Harris, and we have joining us is Dr. Nicole. We want to just put up a little disclaimer for a moment as we discuss this topic. This episode contains sensitive content about suicide. If you or your loved one are struggling with suicidal ideations, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or message the crisis text line at 741-741. Both services are free and provide confidential support 24/7. Good evening. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm wonderful. Great evening. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to share with our audience who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Well, I am Dr. Nicole Burris. As Sherry has already stated, I am affectionately known as the Heart Coach. I am a pastor and a life coach, helping people with all magnitudes of life's issues so that you can apply a winning mindset for success. I own Better You Empowerment Coaching, where I offer, again, a magnitude of things. If you need grief counseling, marital counseling, premarital counseling, personal development, you name it, I help you with it. End of life support, coping with illness. That's who I am. That's what I do. I believe in helping people bring out their best, but also in the midst of darkness or in the midst of the unknown, because too many of us are suffering, right? We're suffering in silence, or we don't want to ask for help because we feel ashamed. A life coach is not a therapist. I am not a therapist, but I am a coach. And the difference is that a therapist makes you sit on the couch. You come sit in my chair, or we do it over the phone. But it's really about helping you to find your own internal resources and helping you to tap into the very successes that God has for you that a therapist may or may not do. But it's really about giving you a plan, helping you to identify your own plan and executing them for your life, helping you understand your walk and how to implement the things you desire out of life.
Awesome. That was a nice introduction.
Thank you.
So we're going to just dive right into it as far as our question goes, because again, this is a sensitive topic and we need to be free to speak, but also be sensitive to what is happening, because this is a real issue. And sometimes we don't like to talk about it, but it's real. And I don't know if you've ever experienced it or know someone closely. So I'm just going to ask the question this way. Can you tell us about a personal experience with suicide or grief and loss?
Sure, actually, all the above. So when I was just a little girl, I had an uncle who had a temporarily failed attempt of suicide. He was in a really bad space with him and his wife. And he told her he was going to kill himself. And she said, go for it, go do it.
Wow.
So he did it. He attempted to shoot his head off with a shotgun. And as I mentioned, he failed. He did survive for a little while, but he was incapacitated. He was in a vegetative state. And my grandparents had to make the choice to take him off of life support to let him go. In my previous, job, I have dealt with teens that have had suicidal ideations. Somebody in my ministry had suicidal ideations. We couldn't find her, and I went looking for her. She lives in a completely different state. And when she found out I was looking for her, she came to herself. Praise the Lord, right? And it had nothing to do with me, but I truly believe she saw the intervention of the Holy Spirit. And it's not easy, and I've had patients or clients who have had people in their families who have committed suicide or had suicidal ideations, and it's not easy. Death is never easy.
Never.
But when you feel or you recognize that your loved one took their own life, it sucks the power out of you. We don't have power anyway, but we think we do, right? Especially as a parent.
Right.
As a parent, and your child, no matter how old your child is, it's still your child. And your child decides to take his or her life, it sucks everything out of you.
Yes.
And you feel empty, and you just don't know which way to go. And you feel like there is no way to go, but this is where our faith comes into play. It doesn't matter. Now, I am a Christian pastor, but I am a firm believer that if you have a faith, that's what you need to tap into, because that's your power source. And if you are going to turn your back on your faith, then you have nothing there. You're just in an open, empty net, right? And you're just free falling. So those are my experiences, people that I know. And even I even consider people who are drug addicted and die from an overdose. To me, that's suicide, because you are willingly, slowly killing yourself, and then when you take that last hit and that's it, to me, it's almost the same thing. And that's hurtful, because when you have a loved one who has died because of an OD, yeah, it's drug inflicted. but
Mhm.
it's still the same thing. There
Mhm.
was something that they felt they didn't have,
Mhm.
that they needed, and they felt that the drug was it. So
Mhm.
I know people have differing opinions about that, but that's a key. That's me. That's my belief. Because whether it's slitting your wrists, whether it's taking sleeping pills, whether it's being cracked out, whether it's having a noose, whether it's gun inflicted, whatever. To
Mhm.
me, it's all in the same thing. How you do it doesn't matter. You did it, and it's hurtful, and
Mhm.
it's about learning how to bounce back, learning how to live the life that you have been given to
Mhm.
live, and to live fully,
Mhm.
so that you can reap the joy, because there is joy, especially if you're Christian.
Mhm.
There is joy, and the power is not ours, but it is the Lord's. And we have to know how to call on Yah's name for that moment.
Yes.
Because that moment can be long. One year to us is like 1,000 years to him, right? Or 1,000 years is like 1 year. And so
One day.
we just have to, thank you, one day. Um, I just get excited, right?
Yeah,
One
absolutely.
day is like 1,000, yes. And so we just have to learn
Mhm.
to trust and tap into our resources.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Even though they're taking alcohol, it is a slowdown, and some would prefer that way. They don't
Mhm,
want to be here, but they don't want to feel the pain before leaving out. And
mhm,
so pulling the trigger is hard, but drinking would be easy.
mhm,
Because sometimes you just want to escape the pain,
yeah,
not knowing that they're loved or there's some help out there for them. But at that moment, all they see is darkness around them. They just see
mhm.
the pain. They just feel the pain and see darkness. What do you think are some of the most important things people should know about suicide and suicide prevention?
So I think one is understanding it is that it's nobody's fault, but
Hmm.
especially if you have children.
Hmm.
If you have children, because children 9, 10, 11 years old are killing themselves,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's about helping them to understanding what they're going through and recognizing what it is, because oftentimes children won't say anything.
Hmm.
They won't tell you that they're being bullied in school. They won't tell you that they're not learning something in school. And it's, how do you make them feel as a parent
Hmm.
without shaming them, right? And some of us like, well, just get it together.
Hmm.
You can do it. Stop acting like a
Hmm.
wuss or whatever. But knowing what they're going through and helping them to identify it. And it's not just a matter of you going to the school, right? Let's say I'm being bullied. It's more than you just coming to the school and saying, well, my daughter is being bullied, but
Hmm.
how are you handling it every day? Because I still got to go back to school the next day.
Yeah.
Now they're going to keep talking about me the next day. Now they're saying this and they're saying that, but it's helping me to build my esteem, helping me to, and fighting back is not always the key. Now, I'm from the city, so I'm a city girl.
Right.
But it's about helping them to find their own ground. Sometimes what we'll say is understanding the risk factors, right? First, it's conflict with others. Maybe it's family conflict.
Hmm.
Maybe that something has happened to that child that has caused them trauma. It could be a history of bullying, as I've already mentioned. It could be the loss of a friend. It could be moving to a new school district. It could be moving to a whole different state. It could be being taken from your parents. So there's a lot of different facets that happen. And we have to identify those that are in the risk. If you poor grades, if you see that their grades are dropping all of a sudden, direct or indirect verbal threat, that
Hmm.
this is what they're going to do. They're always irritable or angry. They don't ever want to say anything. They lock themselves up in the room all the time, don't want to eat dinner. with you anymore. Just a lot of differences, or even if there's sudden dramatic changes. See, some changes are real subtle, but
Okay.
there can be some dramatic changes that you notice. You might notice that they're doing drugs, or you might notice that they're drinking. We have to help them do it. And so how do we do that? Right? I think that's the question. Is
Yes.
we have to acknowledge as parents, we feel like we have all the power, we know everything, and you're going to do it my way, but that's not always the right approach.
Uh-huh.
Some of us as parents are right, and all of us, I believe, want what's best for our children. We
Mhm.
want them to thrive in school. We want them to get good grades. We want them to play sports. But you also have to know your child. And
Yes.
we should not be forcing
Mm-hmm.
our children to do everything we want them to do, but also giving them, excuse me, a chance to say no.
Mm.
But knowing when to say that you need to say yes to their no.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Right. So we have to acknowledge negative feelings and provide support for them, whether it's spiritual support, emotional support, personal support,
Mm-hmm.
and really hearing them.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting down with your children and saying, listen, just talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be true to your word. You can't say, tell me what's happening, I won't get mad, and then you turn around and you blow a gasket.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe the child doesn't want to talk. So you
Mhm.
say, write down what something is wrong, write it down, put it on a piece of paper and let me read it.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
We have to be honest and ask them how they're doing. Be genuine about it.
Right.
Most parents are working 2-3 jobs,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Some of us are working one job, but it's like working 2-3 jobs because we go to the moon at 7 at night, we're not done till 9. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But really being able to be honest and allow them to discuss their challenges
Mhm.
without you saying, you my child, how you going to do that? You shouldn't be acting like that, right?
Right.
Because that makes them feel worse.
Mhm.
And then promote social connectivity. Now, every child, because even for adults don't like being around a whole lot of people. And we have to understand that that's okay.
Right.
Some people are just socially awkward and they're slow bloomers. And you
Mhm.
don't want to put them in a position or in an atmosphere that makes them feel worse. So now you're telling them, go out, play this and play that and do this and do that. And they're just not wanting to do it. Now, if they do it and they like it,
Mhm.
great. Because, we say you never know what you like until you try it.
Absolutely.
But you want to be honest with them and allow them to know that we need you to explore some things and explore with them and see how they feel about it.
Right.
Allow them to ask questions.
Mhm.
Tell them that you want to ask questions. And, is it okay if I ask you these questions? And as parents, we don't always feel like we need permission.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we do when our children are struggling, because sometimes suicidal ideations can
Mhm.
be a mental health issue.
Mhm.
It could be a medicine issue if your kids are taking medicine,
Right.
or it could just be an issue,
Mhm.
right? Low self-esteem, bullying, not feeling like you fit in. And
Mhm.
it happens, if I'm a little Black girl and I'm in an all-white school,
Mhm.
I might not feel like I fit in. And they're talking about me. Or if
Right.
I'm a white girl in an all-Black school,
Mhm.
I still feel awkward and
Right.
I don't fit in.
Mhm.
What about biracial people? It's a whole lot of us. I'm too light to be Black, and I'm not Black enough, so I'm white.
Mhm.
So, and we go through that. So it's about understanding your children, but also seeking help
Mhm.
and asking help from people, that you might know. And it's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Mhm.
But you have to be able and willing to take next steps. And it's the same thing for adults. Adults can be functioning with suicidal ideation,
Mhm.
right? It's just like a functioning alcoholic,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They get sloshed all the time, but they wake up and go to work just like nothing ever happened. They come home and they sloshed again, right?
Mhm.
So adults can also function like that. You never know, because we have learned how to put on that face.
Mhm.
We have learned to work and get through work, and we count down on the time and the minutes. But recognizing when your friends need help and doing an intervention.
Right.
You can't always fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people need to talk about it. There's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
People with suicidal ideations, there's trauma
Mm-hmm.
that's happening, especially if it's not related to your medicine, right?
Absolutely.
There's trauma. And so we have to recognize that I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to tell people that. And sometimes it's work. We're so bogged down with work. I gotta make sure I gotta maintain my job. I gotta make sure my kids are in the best school. I gotta make sure my wife has the best car, right? It can be overwhelming. And especially if we get into a financial situation, that is also really one of the highest reasons that people commit suicide is finances.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to know that it's nothing to be ashamed of, but it's that shame that keeps us from reaching out for help.
Right. I think
Not from,
I think we need to allow people to be authentically themselves.
yes.
Sometimes we don't have people to talk to, so we bottle all that in,
Yes.
instead of just listening,
And
regardless of how
sometimes,
difficult it may be. Mm-hmm.
Pastor, we have to hear what's not being said.
Absolutely.
We're too busy. We don't hear and we don't see what's not being said, or
Mm,
we don't want to recognize what isn't being said.
mm,
And and as we mentioned, this is Suicide Prevention Month. September 10th is Suicide Prevention Day, and we it and suicidal ideations are cry for help.
mm-hmm,
I had a client that her and her spouse were not in the best spaces,
mm-hmm.
and her cry for help was, "I'm just going to go kill myself.
Wow.
You'll be better off without me. I don't even know why I'm here any longer. Why I don't even want to live like this anymore."
Mm,
Right? And for him, he thought that she was just being dramatic. And that's what he said. She's just being dramatic. She's just saying it to be saying it. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. But a lot of people will do that. A lot of people will say, "Well, I'm just going to go kill myself." Or, "You don't love me. What do I have to live for?"
mm-hmm.
You have to take that seriously, because if you don't, tomorrow they may not be here. The next hour they may not be here. Like I said, my uncle did that. His wife at the time thought that he was being dramatic and was like, "Fine, just go do it." She did not think he would do it, but he did it.
Because that seed became a thought, and then that thought actually just made it happen. I mean, you have to take
Absolutely.
these things seriously, whether it's something they say all the time randomly, but you speak
Mhm.
something enough, it's going to manifest.
Absolutely. And so adults and children, believe it or not, they go through the same things. There are a lot of adults that are bullied on the job.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about that. We think of bullying just being at school for our children,
Mm-hmm.
but there are adults who are bullied.
Mm-hmm.
There are adults catfish. Can you imagine what that's like to be catfish? And now all of a sudden your whole world has just crumbled before you. Um, Family history. If there's a family history of suicide or mental health issues, you should be, concerned if your loved one is also now talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
um, Financial instability, as I've mentioned, the loss of life,
Mm-hmm.
whether that death is a spouse, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, or whatever. Sometimes death can also send you over the top,
Yeah.
but we just have to learn to not dismiss it. That's the thing, is too many of us are dismissing it.
Right.
Um, so the CDC said, I'm trying to find it now. The CDC said that 48,000 deaths occurred by suicide in 2021. It might not seem like a lot, but it's a lot.
That's a lot. One is
In Yep, in 2021, 12 million adults had suicidal ideations.
mm-hmm.
3.5 million made a plan, and 1.7 million attempted it. It's 2.6% higher. It was 2.6% higher in 2022.
Mm.
And so when someone tells you they're going to kill themselves, you want to ask that hard question. Do you have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have a plan, you're in a grayish area and you're okay for
Mm-hmm.
the most part.
Mm-hmm.
That person is somebody that you will be able to see a therapist if you got the right therapist or life coach can help you get through it,
Yes.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
if they have a plan, it's serious. If they say, well, I have access to a gun or I have a knife or I'm just going to take, my sleeping pills and I'm just going to go to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
things are a little escalated.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the power to, what is the word, to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
And so you gave the 800 number and the text line, but there's also the 988. You can call 988, which is a free call. It is a suicide crisis line, which is confidential. And you can say, I just finished talking to my friend. She's having suicidal ideations and she said she's going to take sleeping pills tonight. Now they can't make anybody do anything, but they do have counselors available, right? They can have someone come and get you and take you to go get help if you need it. Same thing with the prevention line or the text line. So you're never alone, but don't feel like you don't have any power with that. What do we do with that? If I came to you and I said, you know what, Sherry, I don't even think life is worth living anymore. I don't even know why I'm here. My kids is bad. I lost my job 3 weeks ago. My husband is leaving me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that? We are not equipped. That's heavy.
It's
What do
really.
you do?
Mm-hmm.
And girl, you be all right. You know you can go out and get a job because that's what we say, right? Girl, let me help you with that resume, and you can have a job next week.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so in the dark right now
Right.
that everything else, and you feel like you can't help. So there is help. It's not always just the person that's having the ideations. It's also the loved ones and friends you can also call. And if a person is in a manic mode, you call 911
Mm-hmm.
and they will come be like, listen, my girlfriend, she's just off the chain. She's yielding a gun or whatever. She says she's going to hurt herself. I can't get her calm. And they can come and try to help, or they will call 988 and dispatch a counselor to come. So, and can I share a story really fast? Because I talk really fast when I get excited. And I had a client that she had lost her mom. Her mom had died, and she had had suicidal ideations while her mom was alive. But when her mom died, her dad called and said, I can't do anything with her. She's telling me she's going to take her life. So I went out there and I called, back then it was 211, and had a counselor meet me out there to talk with her. And then I followed up with her for bereavement. Praise the Lord, hallelujah. She is doing well and she is thriving in life. But it takes something like that. It takes you to not know what to do, to call somebody to help you do what needs to be done. Because it's sensitive. And what do we do with that?
It's a lot. It is a lot. And that 988, it covers everything. Someone with substance abuse, someone who's going through anything other than suicide. It's for a plethora of things. But it is hard. Sometimes you don't have the right answers, so you need to call someone that can coach you along, because it's a very sensitive topic, and certain words that you use may be a trigger to help them to execute it. So we have to be very careful of what we say. We have an upper hand, if you will, because we can pray, and in the fact that you are a life coach and you are a believer that helps, because we're sagacious, the book, what we're supposed to say, and then you also know the word.
Absolutely.
And then we have that contact with the Father to be able to pray, to intervene. But it's a very, very sensitive topic. And, uh, people go through the motions. I made a post the other day that every smiling face isn't happy. Some
Right.
people learn how to cope. They learn how
Mhm.
to, um, they know how to be
Mhm.
fake. They know how to
Right.
just get along to get along.
Mhm.
They're not happy.
Absolutely. And it is, and it's unfortunate,
Mhm,
right? And we have to learn. I
mhm,
think how to, I think you said it, just a word can trigger. We have to learn to know how to speak or how to talk, right? And telling somebody, you've got a great life. Why would
mhm.
you want to even think about that? You
Absolutely.
know what I'm saying? Or that's ridiculous. I don't know why you would say that.
Mhm,
Or we could say, you don't mean that. Girl, stop playing,
mhm,
right? That's not helpful. But
mhm.
that is our way of deflecting because we don't know. But instead, we should be saying things like, what's really hurting you
Mhm, mhm,
that you would think this way?
mhm,
What do you think would happen if you continued living?
mhm,
Right?
mhm,
And not that we're therapists, but sometimes we are the first responder
mhm,
to our loved one
mhm,
that is in this predicament because we don't know what goes on when the lights go out.
mm,
We don't know what goes on when they lay down at night.
mhm,
We don't know what goes on when they're in the shower grappling with their day,
mm,
right? We don't know what's going on when they're drinking that cup of coffee or they pick up that hidden booze out of the trash can.
mhm,
So we have to know, we have to learn to say, why are you hurting?
mhm,
What's hurting you? And be willing to receive it,
mhm,
even though you may not be able to do anything with it,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And if you are a parent
mhm,
with a child in the house, or even if you're a parent with a grown child in the house with suicidal ideation, and
mhm,
you have weapons in the house,
mhm.
you need to remove those weapons. Don't
Absolutely.
put it somewhere where you think they can't get it. Don't, yeah, I know you got the safe, it's locked up. Do they know how to get into it? Because
Mhm,
sometimes they do. You
mhm,
want to remove them altogether
mhm,
so that there's no enticement.
mhm,
Knives, guns, whatever you have, drugs, alcohol, whatever the means are, you want to take it out of your house
mhm,
because and people say, well, it's my house. I'm not doing all that.
mhm.
But then you don't love your loved one because now you have given them a means
Yep.
to
Ammunition.
do it.
Mhm,
Mhm. So you want to make sure that it is out of the house, and treatment centers are okay. Treatment is okay. Talk to them about it, but let them, if they have a therapist, again, doesn't matter how old your child is or your loved one is or your friend is, your colleague is, doesn't matter.
mhm,
You don't have to ask them, well, what did your therapist say?
mhm,
What did you talk to your therapist about? Let him or her work it out with their therapist.
mhm.
And if they want to share with you, then they will. They already feel shame. So let them heal and just you be that safe